Okay friends, let's go ahead and get under the hood. We're going to make our way over to the passenger side to the coolant reservoir area. You're going to find a cap on that. You're going to want to go ahead and turn this counterclockwise and lift it up and away from your face. Just keep in mind it could be under pressure. It's a good idea to make sure your coolant system is cold. Just give that a quick inspection. Assuming it looks good, you can go ahead and put it aside. A quick recommendation is it's a good idea to go ahead and flush the cooling system before you replace any coolant-related parts. Now we can move underneath the vehicle. Along the passenger side of the radiator, you're going to find the petcock, which is also considered the drain for the cooling system. To drain the coolant, we're going to come right over here to this hex. We're going to use a 19mm wrench. Go ahead and loosen this and allow the coolant to make its way down into your collection receptacle. After the coolant's finished draining, make sure you recycle it properly. Okay, so now that we have that drained, it's going to be time to start replacing this. Of course, you're going to want to locate it. If you find your upper radiator hose and follow it down to where it connects onto the engine, that's where your thermostat housing is located. So let's start getting this out of here. First, I like to get the ignition wires out of the way, just to give myself a little bit more access in this area. Of course, I'm going to want to make sure that I mark each of these so I know exactly where they're going to go back. I'm going to mark these in no particular order. I'll just put one line on this one, 2 lines on this one, and 3 lines on that. To remove these, you just carefully grab onto these 2 ears, give them a little squeeze, and lift it up and off of the coil pack. Once you remove it, just give it a quick inspection. If you see any funny colors, it's corrosion and it would need to be dealt with. Go ahead and remove all of these. Slide those to the side. Now it's going to be time to disconnect the coolant temp sensor. For this, right along where my index finger is, there's a little tab. You can carefully grab onto that. We're going to give it a little squeeze and lift this up and off. As always, we'll give it a quick inspection. Assuming there's no corrosion, go ahead and set that aside as well. Now let's start disconnecting our coolant hoses. Keep in mind, there could still potentially be coolant inside the system. Let's just grab onto that clamp. We'll give it a little squeeze, slide it right on up that hose and out of our way. Now let's try to break this hose free from the thermostat housing. Give it a quick inspection. Make sure it's still soft and pliable and it doesn't look torn or worn or damaged in any way. Let's set that aside. Now we can move along to our upper radiator hose. Once again, we're going to squeeze the clamp, slide it up, pull the hose off of here. Let's grab our wiring and move it out of the way. Now let's move to our last coolant hose, the one that's right behind the idler pulley. I'll use my flathead screwdriver on this clamp. Once it's loose enough to slide down, that should be good enough. We'll just go ahead and break that free. Break the hose free from the assembly. Now this hose isn't going to slide down. It's a very short hose and the other end of it is connected to the water pump. Essentially, we're just going to break this free. After that, we'll remove all of our mounting bolts and slide this up and out of the way. Okay, let's continue on with an 8mm socket, and we're going to remove all 3 of our 8mm mounting bolts. Inspect each of the bolts as you remove them. Make sure you clean them. If they need to be replaced, replace them. Let's get that third one. There it is. Now we can give this a little wiggle, start breaking it free. Keep in mind that it's still attached to the hose down there. There it is, friends. Let's pay attention to the engine right where it needs to mount to. We'll use a nice flat razor blade, and we're gonna go ahead and make sure that we get all the debris off of this area. So when we put the new unit in there, the seal makes good contact. Once you have it scraped, wipe it down, make sure it's a nice, flat, smooth surface. Now, something to think about is our housing comes with the coolant temp sensor installed. If for some reason you're replacing it and it does not have a coolant temp sensor, it's very simple to install. All you'd want to do is go ahead and remove the clip that holds it in place. Go ahead and give it a little wiggle, pop it right out of there. Give it a close inspection, make sure the O-ring's still good. After that, go ahead and slide it right down in, make sure it's secure, and then lock it in with the metal clip. Easy peasy. Before we go ahead and put this onto the engine, have a look at the bottom. There's supposed to be a rubber seal here. You want to make sure you coat that with a little bit of dielectric grease or even a tiny bit of coolant. Now we can take this and we're going to put it on the engine. At the same time as we put it on the engine, you also want to start your lower hose onto this area. Get it right in on that hose there. We're going to start pressing this down into position along the engine. There we are. Now before we go ahead and tighten up our clamp down here, let's continue on with our 3 mounting bolts. The hardest part is just going to be getting this lined up. Once you get the first one lined up, generally the rest of them fall right into place. Now that they're all bottomed out, let's go ahead and torque each of these to 89 inch-pounds. Let's tighten this clamp down here. That's nice and tight. Reconnect your coolant temp sensor. Listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure it's secure. Let's get this hose on here. Slide it all the way down to the thermostat housing. Bring your clamp down into its original position. Grab that hose, give it a tug to make sure it's completely secured. Move along to your upper radiator hose. Bottom it out against the thermostat housing, of course. Bring the clamp into its original position. Let's put on our spark plug wires. When you do it, you want to make sure you put them in the original positions, and typically it's a good idea to use a little bit of dielectric grease. Slide it down, listen for 2 clicks. 1, 2. Give it a tug, make sure it's secure along both of the ears. Do the same to all. Now let's make our way underneath the front of the vehicle and close our drain. We'll just turn this clockwise until it feels as though it's bottomed out. Double check to make sure it's tight. Clean up your mess. Okay friends, now it's going to be time to go ahead and fill the cooling system. You're going to do that right in through the coolant reservoir area here. When you fill it, you need to look along the front. You're going to see a little chart. It's going to have a minimum and a maximum. Go ahead and top it right off to the maximum. We'll go ahead and close this, start up the vehicle. Okay friends, so at this point, what you're going to want to do is have the vehicle running for a little while. You need to pay attention to that coolant reservoir and make sure that the coolant doesn't go down too low. It's a good idea to make sure you top it off frequently. Now, why would it keep going low? Because the air is making its way out of the coolant system, and as the air makes its way out, coolant's going to make its way down. Like I said, make sure it's topped off to the maximum line. Continue checking the heat inside the passenger compartment. You want to make sure that you've got plenty of heat coming out of there and you can hear the cooling fan turn on. After that, there shouldn't be any more air inside the cooling system. You can go ahead and double check that fluid level one last time. Close the hood, take it for a road test. Thank you for watching.